Okay, welcome to chapter 11, power and political behavior. What do we need to know for this chapter? There's a number of learning outcomes. First of all, you have to understand the concept of power. What does it mean? The sources of power and the basis of power in organization. Where do they come from and what are the bases of them? How to increase power in organization without abusing it, because there's always a danger that power is abused, and how to use power ethically, political behavior and influence tactics, and how to manage political behavior. Let's jump in. What is power? Okay, so power is having the ability to directly influence the behavior of other people. And you can do this through controlling projects, resources, and other things within an organization. Essentially, your ability to influence others. And there's two components. There is dependence and there is context. So let's go through dependence first. The degree that someone must rely on someone else to achieve their goal. So the more dependent people are on the person who holds power, the more power the person has, if that makes sense. And the second component is context. Sometimes power is situational. So you might have power over someone in an organization, in a committee perhaps, or a group, but not in your more formal roles outside of that committee, because you might be the chair of the one committee, but when you go back to your regular jobs, you don't have any power over that person. Or obviously, you may have a manager that might have power over your professional life, and when you come into work and how long you stay and when you what days a week you work, but obviously has no power over your personal life. So people respond to power in three ways. The first one is compliance, and that's the most common. They just follow along, right? If the boss says, we need you to make sure that the boardroom is organized, please go do that. You're going to, maybe reluctantly go clean up the boardroom and make sure it's all organized. The second one is commitment, and that is a genuine agreement where you say to the manager, absolutely, I'm going to do whatever needs to be done to help this organization because I believe in it and I love working here. Like, you're committed to it. And then the third one is resistance. So you actively try to avoid doing what your manager told you to do, or just simply refuse and say, listen, you didn't hire me to organize things. You hired me to find marketing solutions maybe. And so you avoid having to go in there and clean the boardroom. Okay, so where does power come from? Like, what are the sources of power? And the first broad term is positional. So that is someone who has a legitimate title, manager, assistant to the manager, regional supervisor, whatever it is, and they legitimately have power over other people in the organization. You can tell them what you need to do and what resources they're going to have in order to do that. So under positional, there's a number of bases of power. The first one is legitimate power, and this is what we just talked about. It is a hierarchical position where you agree to have a boss and they agree to take you under their wing and make sure that you have what you need to do or have to achieve your job. And they request certain maybe behaviors of you. I want you to run the meeting. I want you to reach out to this client. And legitimate power is the most common power in organizations, because every organization, or at least the majority of them, will have managers and bosses and supervisors. The second base of power is reward, and that is when the power holder has the ability to allocate various rewards to people. So if you go and get a new client today, I'm going to give you a Friday off, or I'm going to give you some sort of benefit, right? And these rewards can be used to motivate the performance of employees, as long as they link their behavior between their performance and the rewards. Like, they understand that if they go out and they perform to a certain level, that they're going to get rewarded for it. Coercive power is a type of power where the manager or supervisor uses negative consequences to get people to follow their behavior. If you don't show up to work early, I'm going to make you work longer on Friday, or maybe you're going to have to find somewhere else to work. So that's a negative way to really use your position to try to influence people's behavior. And informational power is an interesting one. So, informational power is the ability to collect, control, and disseminate information that other people may want, right? That you might have some inside information into the organization or facet of the organization, and then people want that information. So you say, listen, you distribute or you exhibit this certain behavior, and based on that, I will give you some information. Okay, then personal. Personal is the other major source of power, and there's two types. Referent power, which is kind of that elusive power based on interpersonal attraction. Kind of people have a big personality or charismatic individuals. They use that to influence power, to influence people because they have really good, maybe personal people skills. And then expert power is the type of power that exists when someone has special knowledge or ability or a skill that's in demand, right? You might be the person who knows how to maybe get into a certain type of software and utilize various aspects of that software. And this is what's really interesting is that as you continue your education, you might exert a lot of power within an organization because you have the education in the background that other people don't. So that's always something that you can influence. It's something you can develop and something you can strengthen, right? Through education and training, as well as a referent power, right? You can also work on your interpersonal skills, your ability to interact with each other, charismatic qualities. So those types of powers you can control within your career, regardless of the position that you're given. So that's kind of exciting because it's kind of, you can control your own destiny there. Okay, what increases power? Like what are the factors or the variables that will increase someone's power in an organization? So the first one is sustainability. And that's when an individual or a group controls a resource that has no close substitute or alternatives, right? Like you control that resource. A good example might be diamonds, right? Diamonds in the world is a controlled level of diamonds globally. And because it's a limited resource, there's a high value in that. So sustainability is the first one, or sorry, substitutability is the first one. The second one is centrality. So centrality is the idea that a lot of people have to come through one person to maybe get power or access to resources. So if you had someone who supervised 100 people, all 100 people might have to come to you, the manager, for answers. So that's a high degree of centrality. Visibility is the next one, and that factor refers to people who are well known within a given context. They're known as maybe the go-to person, and that person is maybe standing up in a lot of meetings. Maybe they have a lot of influence in the organization. So often, the more visible someone is, the more power they have. Cultivating relationships goes hand in hand with the charismatic type of personality. And if you're the type of person that can expand your sphere of influence by developing personal relationships with both your peers and superiors and other people in the organization, you're going to have a high degree of personality, or sorry, of power, because so many people have a relationship with you, right? They have friendships, they have connections, they have work relationships. And so that definitely increases power. Coalitions is another one, and that is the idea of small groups of people getting together and aligning themselves towards achieving a certain goal, right? You might have people in an organization that are really interested in the organization changing something, and they get together and say, listen, let's work together to try to influence the organization to make a switch over here that's going to make our lives a lot easier and the organization maybe a lot more efficient. Authority, we've talked about this before, and that's the level of kind of influence that people have within an organization to make decisions. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 factors that increase power within an organization. So the danger of power is that it can always be abused, right? Like someone, if they don't have to answer to someone, they can often use their position to make people do things that they may not want to do. And there's 3 different types of abuse and power. The first one is harassment, and that's any unwanted physical or verbal behavior that offends or humiliates persons, people. The next one is bullying, persistent mistreatment of a person. And the third one is sexual harassment, harassment where the underlying context is sexual in nature. So the top 10 bullying tactics I thought was something that was really interesting in the workplace. So these are the top 10 ways that people are bullied in the workplace. Number 1, blame others for your errors. So you might blame people below you for what you made a mistake. Unreasonable job demands, criticism of ability, inconsistent compliance with rules, threatening people that they're going to lose their job, insulting people and putting them down, discounting or denying success. So maybe they're in line for promotion or overtime or some sort of title change and you're denying them. Exclusion, you're excluding them from something. Yelling and screaming, which is an obvious one. And maybe stealing credit, right? The opposite of blaming someone on errors. When you do something right, your boss takes all the credit for you achieving something within the organization that you came up with the idea. So this is how power is abused. How do we use it in an ethical way? So here's an interesting model, and it says if you answer all of these questions correctly, then you're not abusing power, using it in an ethical way. The first question is there a good outcome inside and outside the organization? An example here might be a salesperson is trying to do whatever they're trying to do to get a sale. Maybe they discount a product to try to get a bunch sold, but is that really organizing? Is that really good for the organization? I don't know. It might be good for their commission check. Does the behavior respect all parties, and are all parties treated equally or equitably and fairly? And if you can answer yes to all of those questions, then it is the type of power that's being used ethically and kind of in the right way. Politics play a big role in every organization. It's not always negative, but oftentimes it can be negative. And power and influence are exercised outside of an organization, both in informal and formal roles. And sometimes these tactics and strategies are acceptable, and other times they're not. So here are some political behaviors. Attempt to influence others in an organization. Okay, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe you're trying to influence people to, I don't know, be healthier, to go for a walk at lunch, or maybe get into some mindfulness, meditation, exercises, like that kind of stuff. You're attempting to influence other people's behavior, but it really is not negative. Are not part of one's role. Yes, like you stepping outside of your role to maybe try to influence someone in another role in the organization could be seen as a negative for sure. Are not officially sanctioned by the organization, so your boss really hasn't given you permission to take time to do that, and you're taking time that you could be doing something as part of your role to maybe influence other people's behavior or decisions or actions that really is none of your business. And aimed at protecting the individual self-interest, that's almost always a negative thing, where your real underlying reason for doing that is really just to protect your own interest and not better the organization. Okay, so how do people do it? How do people influence other people? And here are a number of ways that they've outlined in the chart. I'm not going to go through all of them. The first one is pressure, trying to pressure people. Maybe you're trying to be assertive, legitimizing tactics, coalition tactics, exchange tactics, upward appeal tactics, integration tactics, rational persuasion tactics, personal appeal tactics, inspirational tactics, and consultation tactics. I'll let you go through all of those on your own. I'm not going to read through all these definitions at this point, but you will be responsible for knowing the differences in the ways that people use influence tactics to change other people's behavior within an organization. It's a good chart. They've defined what all of them mean, and then they've given you an example there. So please take some time to go through that. Okay, so how do you manage political power within an organization to reduce political behavior, right? How do you encourage people to go through the formal chains of command in an organization and feel like they can make things happen and influence their destiny without engaging in political behavior, negative political behavior? Okay, so here are some ways that you can do that. The first one is open communication. And this is something where if you're open about decisions and you're open about the way things are progressing within an organization, people feel more included. The opposite is a lack of communication, right? Like things are ambiguous, uncertain. People don't know what's happening within the organization. That's not a good thing ever. Okay, the second one is participant management, and that's when people are included in decision making. They have a high degree of interest when they feel like their ideas and their thoughts and their behaviors can be included in shaping the organization. The next one is encouraging cooperation. And what you're trying to do there is you're trying to reward people for cooperating amongst teams and in groups and integrating their efforts into common goals of the organization. Managing resources within the organization is another way, and that is you want to try to make sure that people have the resources they need to complete their job, and when they don't, often it's difficult, right? Like they say, okay, I need access to this room. I might need a budget for a meeting. You want to make sure that they have the resources. And then the last way is just to create a supportive organizational climate where people feel like their peers are there to help them, their supervisors are there to help them, that they're not working by themselves out on a limb somewhere, that they do have a supportive network within the organization to help them whenever they need it. And of course, to do all of these things, people need to be empowered, right? They really need to feel like they have some power within the organization to make their own decisions, to respect their work. And some modern organizations have completely flattened this hierarchy, right? And they've eliminated managers and they've eliminated supervisors, and basically everyone has the power to shape their own destiny. They can have the meaning, the competence, the self-determination, and the impact in an organization because they're given that power, right? Meaning is the sense of purpose within an organization. Competence is the belief that they have the skills and ability to do the job. Self-determination is the idea that they can control their own destiny, that they can control how they show up in the organization, what they're there to achieve, and how to go about it. And the final one is that they have the belief that they're impacting the organization. They have a sense that they're contributing to the overall goals of the organization and shaping it and improving it, right? And then they can be proud of the organization and what they're there to accomplish. Okay, so this was a quick overview of power and political behavior within organizations. Just a lot of definitions, no complex models in this chapter, really just some ideas, concepts, and definitions. If you have any questions about power and political behavior, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. And have yourself a great rest of the week.